Demet Özdemir, a name, a face, but also a story that has touched millions of hearts. From Turkey to the world, she has become more than just an actress, she has become a symbol of both strength and fragility. Her energy on screen, her glowing presence, and her undeniable vulnerability in real life turned her into an icon for fans across the globe. But today, we are not here to talk about the characters she played or the glamorous lights of her career. Today, we step into something far more intimate, far more raw, and far more revealing, the pages of her secret diary. Yes, you heard that right. Demet Özdemir kept a diary, a collection of private words where she confessed the emotions she could not share with the world. And at the very center of those words, one name kept appearing over and over again, Can Yaman. From the moment they first appeared together on screen, people sensed something different. Their chemistry was undeniable, their looks carried a weight that went beyond the script, and the silence between their words spoke louder than any dialogue. Fans all around the world began to wonder, was this just acting, or was there something real behind those glances? For years, both Demet and Can chose silence. Interviews were dodged with playful smiles, social media hints were left unexplained, and any questions about their connection were swept under the rug. But what no one knew was that behind the curtain, behind the smiles and the silence, Demet was writing. In the very first pages of her diary, she describes the day she met Can on set. When our eyes first met, my heart skipped a beat. But this was a place where I needed to be professional. I wasn't supposed to feel that way, she wrote. Those words alone revealed something many had always suspected, her feelings were there from the very beginning. As the entries continue, Demet recalls small, fleeting moments that meant everything to her. A quick chat over coffee during a break, the laughter they shared backstage, the inside jokes whispered between takes. To anyone else, these were ordinary, forgettable moments. But in her diary, Demet preserved them like treasures. Each one marked another step deeper into feelings she tried so hard to ignore. And then come the questions she asked herself, questions that cut through the very core of her emotions. Are these feelings real? Or am I just trapped in the illusion of the characters we play? Am I falling for him, or am I too lost in my role? With each page, her answer became clearer. With every passing day, I am more certain. This is not just something happening in front of the cameras. His smile opens a door inside me that I cannot close. These are not the words of an actress confusing fiction with reality. These are the words of a woman realizing she was truly in love. But love was not the only thing written in those pages. Fear was there too. Fear of exposure. Fear of consequences. Fear of losing everything she had worked for. If these feelings come to light, she wrote, will our careers be destroyed? Will people stop believing in the story we tell on screen and only remember us for what we hid in real life? For Demet, this was more than just a matter of the heart, it was one of the greatest dilemmas of her life. And then, the most heartbreaking confession, I wanted to call him, but I couldn't. I held the phone in my hand for hours. If I had said just one word, maybe everything would have changed. One line. One word. One call that was never made. That was the weight Demet carried in silence. The deeper you go into Demet's diary, the more raw and unfiltered her words become. At first, it was about curiosity, about trying to understand the emotions rising inside her. But as the pages turn, the tone shifts. What started as innocent fascination became a storm, one she could neither stop nor control. She writes about the nights she came home exhausted from set, only to find her thoughts circling back to him. I close my eyes, but I still see him, she admitted. Even when I try to distract myself, even when I push my mind to other things, it is his face, his voice, his laughter that returns to me. I am haunted by him. These are not the words of a woman simply caught in an on-screen romance. They are the words of someone battling with her own heart. And then comes the loneliness. Everyone thinks I am strong, she wrote. They see me smiling, laughing, posing for the cameras. But they don't know how alone I feel. They don't know that after the lights fade, I sit in silence, waiting for a message that never comes. That line cuts deep, because it shows how fame can mask the most vulnerable parts of someone's soul. To the outside world, Demet was untouchable, glamorous, and adored. But within those diary pages, she was a woman waiting, hoping, yearning for something simple, a call from Can. There are also moments of frustration. She confessed feeling angry at him, angry at herself, angry at the situation that trapped them both. Why doesn't he say something? I see it in his eyes. I feel it in his touch. I know he feels it too. But he keeps building walls. And I don't have the courage to break them. These words are a reminder that sometimes the strongest connections remain unspoken, not because they don't exist, but because fear silences them. And the diary doesn't shy away from jealousy either. Demet revealed the pain of seeing Can surrounded by attention, rumors, and whispers of other women. I tell myself it shouldn't hurt. We are colleagues, nothing more. But when I see him smile at someone else, it feels like knives in my chest. And yet, I can't say a word. I have no right. I am trapped in silence. The honesty of that confession shows how deeply she felt, even when she tried to convince herself otherwise. But perhaps the most powerful entries are the ones where she admits her regrets. I had a chance, she wrote. There was a night when we were alone, and he looked at me in a way that stripped me of all defenses. I could have told him then. I could have said what my heart was screaming. But I stayed silent. I let the moment pass. And I will never forgive myself for that. Imagine carrying that kind of weight, knowing that one decision, one hesitation, one silence could have changed everything. This is what her diary reveals. It is not just about love. It is about opportunities missed, words unsaid, and a connection that might have been extraordinary but was left unfinished. What makes these confessions even more heartbreaking is that Can, in his own interviews years later, would hint at similar emotions. He spoke about connections that go beyond the script, about moments that stay with you long after the cameras stop rolling. Fans always suspected he was talking about Demet. Reading her diary, it feels almost certain. One entry in particular stands out above all the rest. It is short, but it carries more weight than any paragraph before it. If he had called me back, I would have told him everything. That one line ties together all the silence, all the fear, and all the pain. A call that never came. A confession that never happened. A love that remained hidden, trapped in the pages of a secret diary instead of lived in the real world. And yet, what her diary also shows is that love never truly disappears. Even in her silence, even in her heartbreak, Demet's words reveal a tenderness, a longing, a quiet hope that maybe, somehow, destiny might bring them together again. I don't know what the future holds, she wrote. But I know that my heart will always recognize him. No matter how much time passes, no matter how far apart we are, I will always feel him with me. As shocking as Demet's secret diary is, the story would not be complete without looking at what Can Yaman himself revealed over the years. Because while Demet was pouring her soul into hidden pages, Can was fighting his own silent battles. He never admitted openly to what fans suspected, but the cracks in his armor were visible. His words in interviews, his pauses, his carefully chosen phrases, they all seemed to echo what Demet had written in private. In one interview, years after their most famous project together, Can was asked about on-screen chemistry. His response was telling: sometimes what you feel in front of the camera doesn't just stay there. It follows you home. It lingers. And some people leave a mark you cannot erase. He never said her name, but fans knew. Reading Demet's diary now, it feels undeniable, he was talking about her. What's striking is how similar their fears were. Demet wrote about being afraid of ruining their careers if the truth came out. Can, on the other hand, admitted something that sounds almost identical: there are moments in this profession where your personal life and your work clash. And sometimes, you sacrifice what you feel for the sake of the story you're telling the world. Could it be that both of them were silently choosing their careers over their hearts? The diary makes it clear that Demet waited for him to make the first move. But Can himself confessed in a later interview that he too was waiting. Sometimes you look into someone's eyes and you know they're waiting for you to say something. And you want to. But you're terrified of what comes after. So you smile instead. Those words mirrored Demet's most painful regret, that night when he looked at her in a way that stripped her defenses, and she stayed silent. What if Can was thinking the exact same thing? What if he too left that moment haunted by what he didn't say? Another overlap lies in their discussions about silence. Demet's diary is filled with frustration about unanswered calls, unsent messages, and words that remained unspoken. And then, in one of Can's most emotional public confessions, he said, "The hardest words are the ones you never say. Because they don't disappear. They stay inside you, and they grow heavier with time." Could it be more obvious? The very thing Demet struggled with in her diary, those unsaid words, was the same burden Can admitted to carrying. And yet, perhaps the most heartbreaking connection is jealousy. Demet wrote about the pain of seeing him smile at others, of hearing rumors and not being able to say a word. Years later, Can admitted, "People think jealousy is a weakness. But when you care about someone, it's impossible not to feel it. Even when you have no right, even when you can't say anything, your heart reacts before your mind does." Again, he never named names. But side by side with Demet's diary, the puzzle suddenly fits. One of the most powerful diary entries from Demet read, "If he had called me back, I would have told him everything." Now consider what Can said years later in a candid moment, "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had picked up that call, or returned a message I ignored. Maybe life would be different now." The parallel is almost chilling. Two people, both waiting for the other, both regretting the silence, both carrying the same wound, separately. And it wasn't just words. Fans noticed the way Can reacted whenever Demet's name was mentioned. His usually confident demeanor would soften, his eyes would flicker, and sometimes he would even fall silent. That silence said more than any statement could. It was as if every mention of her name transported him back to the same unspoken moments she wrote about in her diary. Together, their stories, his interviews and her diary, paint a picture of a love that was real, but unfinished. A love that was felt deeply, but never fully lived. A love that both of them admitted to in fragments, in hints, in silences, but never to each other. And maybe that is what makes it so powerful. Because what is more haunting than the love that could have been? One diary entry from Demet sums it up perfectly: "We promised not to fall in love. But we did. And we paid the price in silence." Years later, Can would say almost the exact same thing: "Sometimes the strongest connections are the ones you can't act on. And that is the price we pay." Their words, separate, secret, yet strangely identical, tell us one undeniable truth: they were in love. And yet, fear, timing, and silence kept them apart. And this brings us to the final and perhaps most painful part of the story, the closing words in Demet's secret diary. After pages and pages of doubts, questions, and hidden confessions, she ends with a line that feels less like an ending and more like a wound left open. "If I had the courage to tell him, maybe we wouldn't be two strangers pretending to have never felt what we did." That sentence alone carries the weight of everything unsaid between them. It is a confession not only of love, but of regret. Regret for the silences, regret for the missed calls, regret for all the moments where her heart screamed and her lips stayed still. But the tragic beauty of this story is that Can, years later, echoed almost the exact same feeling. In a rare, unguarded moment during an interview, he said, "There are people you meet who change you forever. And sometimes, life forces you to act like they never did. But deep inside, you never forget." It is as if both of them were speaking the same language, but across different timelines, she in her secret pages, he in his reluctant public admissions. Two parallel stories, destined never to meet. The diary closes with a mixture of longing and hope. I don't know if he will ever read these words. I don't know if he ever truly knew what I felt. But if he did, maybe he would understand why I couldn't look at him the same way again. Those words feel final, but at the same time, they leave the door slightly open. It's as though she wanted the world, or maybe Can himself, To one day discover the truth she couldn't say out loud. And then there is Can's side. In his later career, when asked about Demet directly, he never gave a simple yes or no. Instead, he would say things like, "Some stories stay with you forever. Even when the cameras stop, they live inside you." Those statements, vague, poetic, but heavy with meaning, sounded almost like a direct answer to the diary entries we now know existed. So, what does this all mean? Were they truly in love? The evidence, when placed side by side, speaks louder than any denial. Her words in private, his confessions in public, they are two halves of the same truth. A truth they never shared with each other, but one that millions of fans around the world suspected all along. And perhaps that is why their story continues to captivate us. Because love stories are not only about happy endings. Sometimes, the most unforgettable ones are those filled with longing, silence, and the haunting question of what if? Imagine the weight of carrying such emotions. Demet, writing her pain and desire in secret. Can, guarding his heart behind carefully chosen words. Both of them trapped in a cage built not by lack of love, but by fear, fear of judgment, fear of ruining their careers, fear of losing control over something they had already lost in silence. Theirs is not just a love story, it is a tragedy. A modern tragedy of two people who had everything, the looks, the chemistry, the connection, but who lacked the one thing that mattered most, timing. Still, what remains undeniable is the fact that their feelings were real. Her diary proves it. His interviews confirm it. And the millions who watched them together felt it. This is why fans, even today, hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, fate will give them a second chance. Because the kind of love that burns so brightly does not simply fade away, it lingers, hidden, waiting, alive in memory. As we close the final chapter of this story, let us return to Demet's last words. Maybe one day, when the world is quieter, when the cameras are gone, and when we are no longer afraid, I will finally tell him. Until then, these pages will hold what my heart could not. And Can's final echo, some people, no matter how far away they are, live inside you forever. Together, those words tell us everything. It was love. It was real. And it will always remain unfinished.